Hello everyone, welcome to the first of our astronomy videos for this section. In this video we're going to introduce some of the basic ideas and importantly distinguish between astronomy and astrology. So let's get started. And I just want to pose this to you. I want you to all at some stage look upwards whenever you can. Too often we forget to do this. We ignore the natural world around us, and it's so hard for us to remember to go outside at night time when we've got TV and Netflix and whatever capturing our attention. So please go do it. Go outside when the sky's clear and just observe, look around and see the beauty that's up there. It hasn't always been that we've had these distractions. People have gone and looked outside. And for a long time, space, the stars, everything above our head has been a huge source of wonder for people, to the point that it's even inspired religion. People have worshipped the sun. People have worshipped the moon, worshipped the stars. We still get to look up. Some people still think there's something magical, but we really just are trying to understand what is happening up there. So the study and the fascination with everything that's up there in space, in the stars, is in fact one of the first true sciences. We still practice it today, and it is called astronomy. This is a picture of the Milky Way galaxy. This is the galaxy where we live. It is looking from inside, because we are inside the galaxy. And looking through the cluster of stars, you can see that line across the top of the sky, sort of runs through the center of the sky at virtually all times of the year. So it is visible to anybody, anywhere in the world. And the clearer, the darker the sky, the better the view you get. But even out the back of your house, you'll be able to see that band of stars through the center of the sky. So, astronomy. It is one of the oldest scientific disciplines, and we know that because records have existed from all over the world. Some of the earliest stuff we know is the Babylonians, 1200 years before Christ. They started describing and cataloguing different stars. The ancient Greeks, 400 years BC, they described really complex motion patterns of these planets and started to develop pictures of what we now understand to be the solar system. The Chinese were making star maps around the same time, and some of the earliest records were from the Indians or the Egyptians, and they were creating calendars using the sun and the stars. And this might not seem like it, but this truly is astronomy, using the patterns of motion in the sky to make information for us. And that's where some of these classic structures like the pyramids have come from. They've actually assisted them in their observations of the universe. So seeing patterns in the stars, seeing patterns in the sky is one of the really important things that was part of early astronomy, and it still happens today, but it's perhaps less significant than it used to be. So all of these shapes that you can see in the sky, patterns in the stars, pictures, we refer to these as constellations. So there are several famous constellations, some of particular importance here in Australia. Obviously the Southern Cross. It's also known as crux, which is Latin for cross. And you can see it here in this diagram, this photograph rather. The four main stars of the cross up here in the top corner, and then the two pointers down to the left there. There's nothing special about the Southern Cross though in many ways. You can find crosses all over the sky. Anywhere that you've got four stars, you can create a cross shape. You can see the Southern Cross here in this picture, but then next to it, the Diamond Cross and the False Cross. You can find these patterns. And that's really a lot of the point, is the pattern is something that we create. Now, here in Australia, we refer to this particular bit of constellation as the saucepan, the 3 stars and the bit poking up the top there that looks a bit like a handle. But this is part of a larger constellation that's called Orion. You can see in this picture the belt of Orion are the 3 stars at the bottom of that pattern, and the Orion Nebula and a couple other stars marked there. Where we live is going to make a big difference to what we see in the stars. Where we live, what our cultural background is, makes a significant impact on what we understand about these stars. So the belt of Orion there, the saucepan that we see, these are not names that were relevant to indigenous cultures of Australia. So, for example, some of the people of Arnhem Land, they had a different story for this constellation. They referred to it as Julpan, the celestial canoe. You can see there the shape of a canoe painted in the stars. The 3 stars in the middle are a couple of people sitting in the canoe, and you can see what would have been the handle of the saucepan is actually a fishing rod, basically, catching a fish there up in the top corner. Different communities have different stories. Places where there wasn't as much water wouldn't have a story about a canoe. And other places didn't even give it a story necessarily, but knew that it meant certain times of the year. So the significance of these constellations depends greatly on where you are in the world. So I mentioned that it was referred to as the Belt of Orion, or part of the Orion constellation. And this is based on an ancient Greek story of Orion the Hunter. So this is the way the constellation is mapped out. You can see Orion's belt circled there. Now, as it stands, not much about that looks like a hunter. But when you consider that this is from ancient Greece, and Greece was in the northern hemisphere, I actually see the pattern the other way up. Now we can see the shape, the rough shape of a body. You can see a bow and arrow on the side there, or often interpreted as something that he's caught, hung over his arm, and then the club up in the top. This structure looks a lot more like something that could be interpreted as a hunter. So based on where they are in the world, this constellation makes more sense. There's obviously a lot of constellations up there. You will have heard of many other ones: Aquarius, Pisces, Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn. Altogether, these make up what we know as the zodiac, or star signs. So the zodiac is the collection of these 12 constellations. They're all found in the middle of the sky. They rotate along a plane. And giving these constellations particular significance, grouping them together in this thing called the zodiac, this is known as astrology. Now, it's important to make the distinction between astrology and astronomy. Astrology suggests that these patterns have some sort of real-world significance and that you're going to have some influence over your life, make differences to your personality, give you a good week or a good month or something like that, depending on when you were born. It doesn't. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. There is no scientific validation to astrology in any way. There is no influence that these stars and the patterns in these stars have on your life. We make up these patterns. There's nothing more significant to these patterns than a picture that somebody wants to draw. So, what I want you to have a look at now are a few questions. I've given you brief answers to some of these, but I want you to go and write some more specific answers. What is astrology? What is astronomy? Give a definition and try and make a comparison. How do they differ from one another? Are the zodiac signs actually relevant to astronomy? How are they linked? There is a connection there, but what is it? And finally, is astrology a science or a pseudoscience? Now, again, I've given you most of these answers, but this is something for you to go have a look at yourself, do a little bit of reading, and write down some answers. A short couple of sentences for each of these questions is all that we would need. And then I'd ask you to submit that by the end of the lesson. All right, guys, thank you very much.